Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for December 12th, 2023. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question yourself via audio or video. And we're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. Usually we start by recapping last week's Weekly Tittle, but we posted the YouTube video and the show notes post so late this week that you probably haven't had time to circle back to the tittle. So we're going to skip over that because we have a lot of material prepared anyway. And we will have a new tittle for you today, and we'll check in on both of those tittles when we reconvene next week.
Ed was having family fun and making the traditional dad's cookies and candy deliveries for all of his friends, and he has the burn marks to show for it.
I do.
Burned in the process after working with dad on the candy. So, tis the season for being slightly late on things.
Yeah,
we're sorry.
extra late on things, later than my normal standard of lateness.
It was all because of dad. It was all in service to dad. So we are going to be forgiving, right? We're all going to be nice about it.
There, thank you very much. So last week's dip into our mailbag was so much fun that we decided to do some more of that. So today we're going to talk about, among other things, decluttering clutter, how to start clearing a jam-packed space, organizing plants and pets, and more of your questions and short topics suggested in our surveys and through our other channels. So let's start, Gayle, with where we left off last week. Lisa Beth said she wants to give thoughtful gifts based on shared events rather than just stuff, or gifts that accompany the gift of sharing an event. She says, I've given things like a Disney Mickey toy to a young child, along with tickets to Disney on Ice. I'd like more of that type of pairing gift ideas. So I'm throwing you right into the fire on that one, Gayle. What do you like to do?
I think that's it's a great idea for there to be a little something that is symbolic of the event or the item that the thing that you're going to go do, the ticket, the experience that you're going to try to have together. And I think it's a lovely idea, and it works for adults as well as kids. I mean, certainly having a Disney toy for a little kid that needs to go to Disney on Ice, they sort of need that little toy as a reference point, right, to go with the event, because they don't think so far in the future unless the tickets are going to happen right away. But there's something like, if you're going to go on a skiing trip and the family's going to go on a skiing trip, then you can give everybody, ski gloves or a hat to go with the trip that they're about to go on, or some sort of sunscreen to wear while they're in the snow, that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be dollars. It just has to go with the theme of the event. And I think that's a really great idea. What about you?
Em suggested cough drops with tickets to the symphony orchestra.
Good one.
and ideally they should be cough drops wrapped in very, very noisy cellophane. Crinkle, 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 crinkle,
crinkle, crinkle. God, that's so true.
One of the things I really enjoy doing with other similarly inclined people is cooking. I think cooking is a really fun experience gift, and so you could actually take a favorite recipe and a collection of the necessary ingredients and make that the gift to someone, and then plan a time to get together and do that, to do the cooking together.
I love that. It's sort of like having cooking school, and the gift is the ingredients for whatever you've decided that you're going to make.
Right.
That's great. That'd be fun.
And the cookbook could be part of the gift, or just your, copy of your recipe in a greeting card.
Yeah, and the specialty ingredients. That'd be lovely. I mean, you can see how it would go together. Just pick your theme, right?
Yeah.
And add a little trinket to go with it, just as a visual aid for the trip.
Yeah.
There's so many, even there's lots of families that do like, here's a big, we're going to go on a trip. Everybody's going to go on a trip together. We're all going to go. And so something related to the destination would be lovely. If you're going to experience, we're going to go to this museum, or we're going to go to the, you can always pick up something from the museum itself that you can give to people. And it doesn't even have to be anything big. It can be a postcard. It can be a photo. It can be something super innocuous and not something huge that takes up a bunch of space. Like the whole point of giving an experience or an event is to not be adding to the clutter. So you don't want to then add to the clutter with the gift. So you can be, it doesn't have to be something you spend a lot of money on, is my point. It can be, and it certainly can be something consumable as well. So, but I love, for little kids who really can't, and like they can't think out in the future and anticipate something that's coming, giving a little kid a toy to go with. And then, next week we're going to go see Disney on Ice, or here's a toy because 2 weeks from now we're going to Disney World. I think that's a great adaptation to make for small kids.
M suggests garden gloves with promise to help weed.
Oh, there's a good one. Yes, you can
And
come weed at my house.
Connie said pack of tissues with tickets to comedy show for laughing tears.
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. I should have done that. I went to see Ali Wong with friends as a Christmas gift, and I should have brought tissues because we all laughed really hard. I should have had that inspiration before we went instead of after. Thank you.
Well, I think if the event is a movie that you go to together, or a musical performance, you could give in advance the book, if the movie was based on a book,
Mm-hmm.
or a recording of some of the music that you're going to hear.
Right.
A CD by the artist that you're going to hear would be kind of a fun add-on gift to
Right.
the main gift, which is the event.
If you had concert tickets or something, give
Yeah.
a CD related to it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Something like that. Okay,
Y'all are clever.
Let's go on. I'm sure we'll get some more suggestions there. Barbara asked, is there a complete list of all past Clutter Fairy YouTube episodes? I'd like to listen again to a few from about 3 years ago. And you can find them all, if you'll hold up the sign again, Gayle, you can find them all on our website. You can find them all on YouTube at cfhou.com/YouTube.
There's that one.
And YouTube search is okay. And we've done some organizing to put things into playlists. But if you go to clutterfairyhouston.com, our website, you'll find links to the YouTube videos, and also links to the podcast if you like to download and listen to podcasts, and then show notes that include things like the Weekly Tittle. So you might want to visit our website at clutterfairyhouston.com to find more.
On YouTube, I will say on YouTube, because Ed does a great job of creating playlists based on topic. So if you go out to the YouTube channel and you click on the videos tab, then you can look at the playlist and say, these are all about organizing the bedroom, and this is all about, ADHD or whatever topics he's got out there. And so there's a way to sort of to hone in on exactly what you're looking for if you go through the playlist as well. They're all in there, in reverse date order. Of course, the most recent ones are at the top, and the farther you scroll down, the older they get. So you can do it that way, or you can go into the playlist.
If you go to our website, the search is going to obviously only find stuff on our website. So that if you're looking for a specific topic, that may save you some time, because if you search on YouTube, you'll find Clutter Fairy stuff, and they'll also throw in a bunch of other suggestions.
Right.
On the subject of gifts to accompany gifts, Naomi added, I feel like this is going in the wrong direction. Giving experiences should help reduce the clutter of things, not raise the expectation that you have to give 2 gifts instead of just 1.
And you can totally go with that. If that makes you happy, Absolutely. There's no rule that you have to give something with your event. I think some people just prefer to have that a little physical thing to go with what they're doing, what they're going to go do, but it's totally up to you. And I didn't, I gave my tickets and they did not get physical tickets. It was all virtual, and we just met together and had dinner and went to the event, and we were all perfectly happy. I think it's more important related to kids, but just because they're not as developed there, and it's harder for them to be in the moment now and not have something and anticipate an event later in the future. It's harder for little kids in particular to do that. So it makes the best sense with small children. But if you don't want to give anything extra, you don't have to. Totally fine.
Okay, our next question came from Janice. Gayle, we did not answer this one last week, did we?
No.
Okay, I've read it so many times I thought we might have. Janice says, Gayle, you seem so inviting and non-judgmental. How do you do that? I find that when my spouse or adult child helps me with clutter, I see eye rolling and hear heavy sighs, or they seem to freeze so they won't hurt my feelings. They disappear and leave me to do it. It is my clutter, not theirs, but hey, I ask them for help.
It's true. And this is why working with family members is hard. They're having the experience on their end as well as you. So you're asking for help and they're coming to help, but you're asking them to help you with your clutter instead of theirs. So you're saying basically, please come and help me with my chore. I need support. And everybody responds, when you add to somebody's workload, and everybody is a little has issues with that. So on the one hand, you're asking people to do stuff on top of their own, like they have their own clutter and mess that they have to deal with, and you're asking them to help you with yours. So as family members who feel obligated and yet still it's a chore they would rather not do, then you end up getting things like the eye rolling you talk about, and the heavy sighs, and freezing, trying to not upset you, and disappearing and leaving you to do it. Like, this is all responses to, I'm doing a chore that I don't want to have to do. And they're not professionals. So they are absolutely having judgment about it. And probably because they are also judging themselves about it when they're working on their own stuff. So if they're not coming from, I'm always coming from a place of, I'm a third party professional who is dealing with this is a project, and and helping you through the process of what gets in your way is all part of the service that I'm delivering as the professional to come and tackle the project. But for your siblings, your spouse, your children, it's just them trying to deal with somebody they have a close relationship with, who is giving them a chore that they wouldn't have to do otherwise. And so they're not going to have the best responses. It's part of why working with family members has that added cost to it. And you have been having conversations with them about your ability to manage the stuff for a long time. And so there's a whole lot of emotional baggage that spans a long period of time that's been building up for as long as you have been married, as long as your kids have been kids, like
Conscious.
you're right. Yeah. Like, yeah. So they all have their own long life experience with you and the clutter, and what it's like for them to be in it and trying to help you and feeling like they don't know what to do. And so they come with a whole lot more baggage, and I come with zero baggage, right? Like, when I show up, I haven't had 4 million conversations with you about this. I've had one, and we're having the second probably. And so for me, it's a baggage-free conversation. What you do in your house is your choice in your life, and I have no investment in it. So it isn't anywhere near the same level of problem for me as it is for the people that live with you and have been living in that environment for a long time. So you kind of have to give them a pass in that having free help comes with this baggage of your lifetime of your experience with them and all of the previous conversations you've had about it, and the fact that they feel close to you because you guys are family, which gives them a little bit of permission. The social filters are different inside your own family than they are with friends or people that you don't know well, right? Like things that they wouldn't allow themselves to do or say to someone that they don't know as well, they feel much more comfortable saying to you because you're all in the same family and everybody loves each other. And so that sort of gives them a little bit of permission to be more real with their feelings about it. And so you're probably getting some of that too. So I'm sorry that they're doing that. And I know that it makes it harder for you. And it is the cost of having your family come and help. And if you would prefer not to have that environment, you can talk to them about it and they can make attempts to be better at it. But you'll probably never get rid of their emotional responses 100% like I would be. They can't be me. So the end goal for them is maybe an improvement in how much they do. And the idea that they're freezing so they won't hurt your feelings is probably their attempt to recognize that their responses are distressing you and they don't want to do that. And so I can see that they may be trying.
Instead of a negative response, you're getting no response at all.
Or they're leaving so that they don't add to it. And so, I'm sorry. And this is, they're probably doing some version, they're making some attempts and they probably could improve some more, but they're never going to be able to get rid of it 100%. And, and I think you probably need some professional support to have that non-judgmental experience.
Yeah. Or just to look beyond your family for help. Pat
that would help.
Pat says better to have a non-judgmental friend than most any family member.
Yes, it is a step more removed, right? Like they have a little bit more constraint and they don't live with you. So they haven't had a bunch of arguments / discussions / distress around the contents of your space. And they're not attached to anything in your house. So that gives them a little bit more remove to be useful and helpful to you in a non-judgmental way. So she's right. A friend would be the next free helper. And you just have to, not pick you have to pick a friend who's going to be neutral and non-judgmental.
Sherry Lynn says, for my own clutter, it's hard for anyone else to make those decisions. If I left the decisions to them, they'd toss it all. But they don't mind being on standby every now and then to carry things out for me, donations, trash bags, etc.
And that's the kind of work that you got to give to them, right? Because it's definitely it's not their stuff.
Yeah. It's got to be the less decision intense stuff. It could be, would you please go through this stack and throw away all the grocery circulars, or and how I help people with their mail is I sort the paper into piles and say, I think this is all trash, without throwing it away. So then you pick it up and you go through it and say, I agree, this is all trash, and you can throw it away. So you can do have them do preliminary sorting work without making decisions, and then leave the decisions to you. And you're right, having somebody on standby to help you do some of the physical work or to run some of the errands. Please go take this to donation. That's awesome. And it's definitely a way that they can participate and making those decisions. It's your stuff and you are ultimately the final arbiter of everything. And you do have to make all those decisions. And so surrendering the decision is not how somebody can help. It's surrendering some of the work without making decisions is how they can help. Yeah. Okay, let's go on.
Okay.
Barbara says, my basement is packed with suitcases, tools, kids' memorabilia, bins of photos, paint cans, garden products, holiday decor, mobility devices that I inherited, canes, walkers, a scooter, and a wheelchair. I can barely walk through it. Where should I start?
So this is because the basement is just like the garage, right? It's a place where there's everything gets jammed. It's the ultimate junk room. And so there's a whole bunch of categories of stuff in there. And so in your list, you listed the mobility devices, for instance. Well, if you've inherited canes and walkers and a scooter and a wheelchair and all that stuff, then that's a category of thing that can be pulled out and donated to someone. In Houston, it's medical bridges, where they take those medical devices and then they package them and ship them overseas. And so if you want to look at your basement in terms of specialty errands that needed to be run, the paint cans, for instance, and garden products are likely things that need to be disposed of in a specialty way. So they need to go to environmental services type donation place. And so pulling out all of the things that need to be driven off to this specialty place is one errand and one piece of the basement you can pull. And pulling out all of the medical devices that can be donated away and collecting them and making that errand run is something that can be done. Pulling out the holiday decor and sorting through it and making keep toss decisions, and then packaging what you're keeping and labeling it, and taking the things that can be donated and donating them away. Clearly, they're not going to go where the medical stuff and where the toxic chemicals are going to go. So you can sort of pull your basement apart based on the categories of stuff and how they need to be handled, and then make those errands one at a time. And so you could do one weekend, you're going to deal with go find and deal with all the medical mobility devices. And then the next weekend, you're going to pull out all the toxic chemicals and deal with that. And the next weekend, you're going to pull out all the holiday decor and sort all that and donate what's left over. And so you can unpack it in that way and ultimately make enough space that you can walk in and start doing with the rest.
Right. Start by getting rid of any tripping hazards.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, and also she does say it's so packed so I can barely walk through it. You might also prioritize larger things, just if there's one big thing that could come out that you're planning to get rid of or donate or trash, get that large thing out first.
And it's likely in there and being ignored because disposing of it has been a problem or is difficult. But facing that errand and making that happen will create a big space for you. And it can be one day's chore to deal with this sofa that's in there or whatever that you have to do to make it go away. But making those phone calls, making that arrangement, having it picked up, making it disappear will then create a couch-sized space in your basement. So he's right. Figuring out how to deal with the large things that have been put in there because they were a disposal problem is a way to clear a big space in a hurry.
Excellent. Charity, who's watching on Facebook, commented on the previous question to say clutter can be a trauma response. Those close to us can also be triggered by that trauma. The professional is not part of that loop, so they have a broader base of compassion to work from.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I also have to add, I didn't say earlier, there's a reason why I do this for a living. And for me, looking at a cluttered mess it's a project to me. It's a workflow. It's a
problem to solve.
It's a problem to solve. It's a thing to tackle. And so I don't come to it and get as overwhelmed, and I don't look at it and go, oh God, this is awful. Like, to me, it's just the next project on the list. And so I don't have the same emotional response to looking at it and facing it and starting to project plan around it that the average person is going to have, or certainly that your family members are going to have. And so I don't have the same I don't get the same sense of overwhelm. And unless it's really big, I have occasionally gone to clients and looked at the project and gone,
I'll be working here for the rest of my life.
Right? Like, oh, this is going to be big. Like, yes, sometimes I can look at it and go, that's a lot. we got a lot to do. But I have my moment of, oh, okay. And then, I dive in and tackle, and that's what we do. So it can be done. And the people that are, the people that are working around you, the family and friends that know you, have a much bigger overwhelm response than I would have, than any professional that would come to the house would have. So
Yeah.
they're
Okay. In
doing
our
their best.
in our survey a few weeks back, I think it was the last survey we put out, we asked about people's New Year's Eve plans, and we never actually reported on the answers because about 90% of them were asleep in bed is where people were going to be at midnight on New Year's.
Right.
But Jean wanted to know where Gayle and Ed will be on New Year's Eve.
So I will be in North Carolina with my family, and probably playing poker at my sister's house. That's probably what I'll be doing.
Nice. That's a fun tradition.
Right.
I will probably be struggling to stay awake on the couch. We do still attempt to stay on the couch until at least midnight, but we don't always make it. So I might be with the 90% of our respondents who said, I'll be in bed.
I'll be in bed.
I
Well, I
may or
am a
may not
night
be awake.
owl.
You are a night owl,
I'm a
and I'm
night owl.
definitely
You're
I'm
a
a,
morning guy.
morning. I'm an early bird. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's a really interesting one from Sue. Why, when I have decluttered, do I find it hard to get rid of the empty plastic boxes? I have at least 5 that there's nothing in, but I don't count them as clutter. What is wrong with me?
There's nothing wrong with you.
Nothing wrong with you.
Empty plastic boxes are a supply. They feel like a very useful supply, right? And so if you have a whole bunch of them, it just feels like you have great supplies that you're going to need later. They're useful. They're like the definition, an empty plastic box, definition of something useful, right? So it still can fulfill its purpose. And you just have to, this is where you're going to evaluate that the items are still useful. You just don't have to keep all of the usefulness at your house. So I would, and this happens at clients' places as well. And as we go through and declutter some portion of their house, we end up with a bunch of empty bins because we've been giving things away, and we've been finding homes for stuff that's appropriate, and we've been thinning down the mail, and we end up with a bunch of boxes because people go to a box as the solution right off the bat. Like the first thing, how do I deal with this mess? I put it in a box. That's the first thing that people do. And so when you actually go about the work of decluttering and you start getting rid of stuff, then you end up with a lot of empty plastic boxes. And they seem super useful because, you did use them. And so as the pile gets bigger, I start grading the empty boxes against each other. So as you have a population of 5, like what are the ones that are sizes that are too big for you to manage? Like you went and got a big tote box that was, when it was full of stuff, was super heavy to pick up. So then, maybe that one's not a good one to keep because you want smaller containers that are easier to lift when they're full of things. And things that are match and stack better, stacked together, are better than things that are all mismatched and don't stack together. Do they have a lid? Do they not have a lid? Are they permanently stained and can't be cleaned or not? That kind of stuff. And so, I start to evaluate their usefulness. Everybody needs a few spare plastic boxes to, for who knows what purpose in the future, but you don't need 30 of them. So 5 is not bad. And you can still evaluate them and say, are these all ones that I would like to use again? Are these the type of boxes that I like to use? And if they don't pass muster, you can donate them away, and somebody will use it down the line. And keep the ones that are the style and shape that you like and that are in the best, they're clean or cleanable and have lids and, function well. Sometimes you buy them and you realize that the way that the lids snap, you find it really hard to open them or close them,
Or pick them up without the lid coming off.
Yes, that
Some
too.
of them, like the handles are where where the latch is.
Yeah, where you grab it.
When you pick it up, it's very easy to unlock it.
Yeah, which is annoying. So,
Yeah,
evaluate it just like you would anything else. If they're not a very good solution, if they're not your most favorite plastic box, they probably need to be sent on down, used for a donation, put some donations in them and send them on down the river.
Pat says, I sell my empty bins between Christmas and New Year's, and they go like hotcakes since everyone is trying to declutter then.
Ah, there you
Everyone's
go.
getting ready for their January resolutions.
Absolutely.
I wonder
Absolutely.
too whether there was something in this question about Sue is still adjusting to the newly
Hmm.
decluttered space, and that maybe there's a shift in mindset that needs to take place. She hasn't quite, it hasn't quite settled in that she's got things where they need to be, and she doesn't need any more supplies.
Right. She's not going to need to have those boxes. Yeah. And because as you declutter, you're creating an empty space and you're getting rid of excess. And so then for so long, you've had a need for those boxes because you had too much stuff. But if you get rid of a bunch of stuff, then that need goes away. And you're right. There may be some time necessary to get used to, oh yeah, that need that I've had for so long has now been finally addressed, and I really don't have to prepare to hold all that stuff because I don't have that much anymore. I got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. And so you may need to sort of like let that sink in and adjust your thinking around it.
M said, organizing for plants and pets. Where does one store and how does one organize the clutter involved in keeping non-humans alive and thriving?
Oh, so I store the pet food near where the pets eat, because you always have to dig in and prepare it there. And as long as they don't, there is that added element of, if you leave it accessible, it better be in a canister they can't open or
It
eat
better be
their way through.
lockable, right?
Right? So they can't get more than they're supposed to get at any point in time. But generally, I would say for pets, store the stuff near where you're going to use it, the litter near the litter box, the food where they're being fed, so that it's all sort of part of one system of grab the food, prepare the food, deliver the food, and it's all right there. And it's easy for you to do it that way. In terms of plants, the stuff related to keeping the plants alive, I think outdoor plants is a different ball of wax than indoor plants, but having a little, think of a little container that has a handle that carries cleaning products around when you are going to walk around the house to do cleaning. You can have one of those related to plants and carry that around and treat all the indoor plants and work on them, because the plants are all sitting around wherever they are in the house. So having a little portable carrier to make the to make your visits to all the plants and treat them and feed them and water them or whatever you're going to do, makes it portable, and then you can go stash it in between. Because I'm not, typically you wouldn't do it every day. Maybe you might, depending on what you're treating, but in theory that's a one and done kind of thing, a couple of times a week. And so you can carry it around, use it, and then go park it somewhere out of the way. Outdoor plants, same ball of wax, but outdoors. So having those supplies out in the garage or in the shed, in an outdoor space, available along with the tools and the lawnmower and whatever else you're doing outside, I think is a better solution. You probably don't want that stuff stored in the house.
Em asked a question. She's with us in Zoom and asked, where does one keep the plant supply carrier?
Oh, well, so you need a cabinet, a shelf to park it on. You don't want it really sitting out
Well,
because it's
and it
chemicals, and if you have pets, then you want them to be safe, right? So
yeah, and it probably should be somewhere cool and dry, because you don't want heat or moisture to cause your plant food and things like that to deteriorate.
right, or to spoil. So yeah, I mean, ultimately parking that inside a closet on a shelf in a cabinet. It needs to be something so it's easy for you to grab, right? But any kind of a cabinet or closet that has shelving on it so that you can go sit it in. Think of the laundry room, and if there's a shelf in the laundry room where something like that can be parked, or a cabinet, that would be great.
Jean asked, after clients declutter, do they ever fall off the wagon and get the space all congested again or start shopping?
Of course. I would say that some people have a little trouble adjusting to the empty spaces that we create. And that's just reflecting that the stuffed spaces are serving an emotional purpose that needs to be addressed in addition to the decluttering. So one story that comes to mind was someone whose house had been broken into, and overstuffing her home was a defense response to feeling vulnerable and afraid after the break-in. In addition to clearing out her space, she needed some professional counseling to help her process that fear and sense of violation in order to stop filling up the house. And I didn't know that when we started, of course, but it came out as part of the work because our work cleared out space, so she felt more vulnerable again. Not everybody who is able to face a decluttering can learn all the new skills and habits in one pass. If you have problems with being organized or doing the decluttering work, if it's not super easy for you or you struggle with it, then learning to do it takes time. And one decluttering process, one decluttering pass isn't likely to teach you all of the changes, all of the new skills that you need to not fall off the wagon, to not have stuff going on, to not have to go back and circle around again. And there's also that effect of you declutter a space and it's a big project and you get it all decluttered. And then you're like, oh, thank God, I'm done. And
I'm
you walk
done.
away, right? and you don't think about then, oh, I have to maintain it. I have to now. I got that project room full because I didn't declutter and I didn't do any maintenance. And now I've decluttered and I also have to add maintenance. And so there's a point of you put in a huge amount of effort to declutter a space. And so it requires a lot of your energy and time. And then when you get to your end result that's complete, then you're like, oh, thank God I don't have to focus on that anymore. And you sort of drop the ball because you're so exhausted from doing the project. So the maintenance part of the process may not kick in right away. So all of that to say, it is a journey. And the decluttering project is one journey, and the maintenance process is another journey. And you can't learn it all in one sitting. So usually what happens is people do start to fall off the wagon, or it starts to get congested. But because they put so much effort into clearing it, then they call me much sooner than they did the last time. They don't wait for it to get that bad again. They get worried about it and they start calling me for help much earlier on. And as far as the shopping comment goes, do they start shopping? I would say some people respond to empty space by feeling like they have to fill it. And I would say that people are used to this space being full. And when we clear it out and it's suddenly empty, they start looking around for what they can put in the space and fill it back up. And I'm always like, no. The point here is for this to be empty. That's the ultimate goal. But there is some mental adjustment when you're used to that being part of the landscape and the landscape being that full. There is some adjustment to living with a negative space, living with the empty space, and not feeling like, oh, good, this is a clear surface that I can then stuff things in.
Yeah.
And so shopping is sort of like, oh God, I have to fill up the empty space. And it's important to stop and go, no, maybe I should just live with the empty space for a minute. But yes, it happens. And it's not a tragedy. It's just part of the adjustment process. I cleared it out, and now you have to deal with all the things that came because of it. And now you have to learn to maintain it. Now you have to, change your shopping habits. Like there's all kinds of things that have to be adjusted in order to not recreate what we cleared out. And so that takes time, and it's not something that would happen overnight. So don't give yourself a hard time. You'll get there.
Okay. Judy asked, how does your virtual organizing work?
Oh, so this is fun. Like the people who are in our Zoom room right now, I get on a Zoom call with a client, and you walk around with your camera and show me what areas you're trying to work on, what you need help with, what you're struggling about. and I can see via the camera what you're working with and ask questions about the stuff. And then I offer suggestions about how you can proceed. So I'm making a project plan of the next steps with you, what to do in order to tackle the project. And so if you want active support, we can work together as you work on a specific area. I will watch you work and ask questions and make suggestions about how to proceed, and then you do the work. I actually helped a couple in California prepare for a move this way. We would get on the call, and then they would start to pack an area, and I would negotiate the conversations between the couple as they discussed what to keep and what to pack for the new place. In essence, they used me as a third-party negotiator for areas that they had difficult doing themselves without struggling. And so I was surprised really to discover that virtual organizing is really very effective. I was skeptical that it would be a problem because I can't actually touch the stuff myself or go and unpack it myself, but it actually works really well. People are really great about, I start asking questions and say, what's in that cabinet, and open that box and show me what's in there. And so I just direct people to do what I would do physically if I was present. And that way I can see what's happening. And then it's really, it's easy enough for me to see through the camera what you're working with and what would be a reasonable way to start and what kind of plan, what things to do in what order. And so it's easy for me to make a plan. And it's also easy for me to be there with you while you work on something and do the same kind of support work that I would do in person. I can do it over the camera. So it's really worked out very well, actually.
And what about the cost and length of appointments?
So I typically do an hour to start with, because if that's enough to show me a project and help you make a plan. If you actually want work sessions, then you can book a work session, just like, you want 3 hours and we do 3 hours virtually, and just like a regular appointment if I was physically there with you present. I start out with an hour just so that you can get an idea of what it's going to be like, and we can talk about plans. And then if you want to physically work together, we can work together, and it's the same cost as it is for a regular session.
Why don't you go ahead and hold up the sign
Yes,
while we're talking about it? And that is cfhou.com/virtual, which will take you to an explanation of how it works. And that will actually take you to where you can book an appointment.
There you go, to scheduling.
And, yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jean asked, is there a preferred hierarchy for decluttering, like a kitchen stuff month?
So the first question I always ask somebody is, what's bugging you the most? What is making you the most crazy? But also consider what areas are most active and need to be clean in order to be safe, like your kitchens and your bathrooms. These are rooms that get used every day, multiple times a day. So if you can declutter those up front, you're going to experience a really big impact to your daily life. I would also include your main closet in that discussion, since you have to get dressed every day. And if the closet's working well, that process of getting ready, getting dressed, getting undressed is a whole lot easier, less stressful for you. Beyond that, I would say that whatever area is making you feel negative emotions is the perfect place to start. Clearing up that space helps you let go of some of those negative feelings. And what a relief that's always going to be to let that nagging negativity go. So if something is making you angry, making you sad, making you feel bad about yourself, like, let's tackle that first so that you can let go of that negative emotion. That's a great place to start.
Granny asked, how do you feel the knot in the stomach and do it anyway?
Yeah, this is definitely a challenge, isn't it? Facing something and feeling fear and then doing it anyway. Would it help to tell yourself that the knot in your stomach is just your commentary on the job at hand? Just because you feel nervous or scared or sad or worried doesn't mean you can't still be in motion. So talk to that emotional response and acknowledge that you hear it. You understand that this isn't a preferred activity, but it needs to be done anyway. Remind yourself that likely the knot will release once you get started, and give it a go. You can do it. I'm going to remind you that you're stronger than you believe you are, and the clutter and the project is not as strong as you believe, that clutter is not as powerful and in control as you think. Trust that you've lived your life until now doing all kinds of things you never thought you'd be able to do. And this will be another such event. You think that you can't do it, but you really can. And so tell yourself, yeah, I know I have a knot in my stomach. I know I'm afraid, I'm worried, I'm upset, but I can do it anyway. And go for it.
Gabriella asked, and we didn't put this on our list to answer, but I'm gonna call an audible and
Okay.
because Gabriella asked, "What's your favorite decluttering topic?" And my answer is the emotional psychological stuff. I think these topics are very interesting, and so you might notice there are quite a few of those in last week's and today's list. What's your favorite decluttering topic?
It's more of a general, like, I like talking about the process of how to tackle something and how to go and deconstruct it and figure out what to do next. All of those processes it covers. You're doing it about paper, you're doing it about the kitchen, you're doing it about the craft room. I love talking about craft rooms, of course, but it's the same concept of how do you dive in and tackle something, tear it apart and rebuild it how you want it. And all of those processes are great. And I also find it really fascinating, like Ed said, that for the people that are not neurotypical, they're neurodivergent, they have ADHD, they have other kind of executive functioning changes, deficits, issues, and how that affects people's ability to organize, I find fascinating just as a personally, because the understanding of how the brain works and how we conceive things it's just amazing to me, that the more that we learn about the brain and how it works and how it affects things that people get judged about all the time. And it's like, yeah, there's no reason for someone to be judged about something. This is just how their brain works. This is just what they've got to work with. This is just where they're coming from. And having a judgment about somebody like that, it's a complete waste of time. And so it's totally useless and worthless to be judging someone about how their brain works. And so I find that information very fascinating as well.
And here is another example of the psychological question. Marianne asked, how to get over the sadness of getting older and the fact that time is limited. Someday, in quotation marks, does not apply anymore. I realize Gayle and Ed are not psychologists, so you don't have to answer.
Well, we are definitely
We're
not
going to do it anyway.
psychologists.
We're definitely not. Yeah.
But we're going to do it anyway, right?
Right. We're never going to let our lack of expertise stop us from commenting on your questions.
That's right. I would say that when you're faced with the truth that time is limited, we can strive to live that time well and enjoy it as much as possible and get the most out of the time left. There's no point in giving up the game before it's over. So don't give up early. Decide how you can best spend that limited time to the best benefit to you, and then go do it. If you, if you run out of time in the middle of doing something fun, that's probably the best that you can aim for, the best that you can hope for. So I recognize this, the idea that you're running out of time and you've gotten older it does have an element of sadness to it. But I think you can focus instead on, okay, if that's my parameter, limited time is my parameter, then how am I going to make sure that I'm having fun, that I am being enriched, that I am
fulfilled.
I am fulfilled every moment until I run out of time. Like, how can I do that? And I think feelings are feelings and they're all valid. And being sad about that is a perfectly valid feeling. And it's not going to be ultimately super productive for you in the long run. So be sad, and then also think about how you can be fun, how you can be fulfilled, how you can experience, make sure you get more experience out of the time that you have left. And if you spend time focusing on that, You can't be wasting your time. If you're loving yourself and taking care of yourself in that way, none of it can be a waste of time.
You don't get over the sadness because that inevitability that you're going to run out of time is always going to be there with you. But go on anyway and identify the things that are going to keep making your life meaningful. Just
And
like,
rich.
write down the one thing that you want to do every single day from now until you run out of days, and make sure you do it. Or maybe more than one thing. Maybe like I have a list of 5 things that I'm trying to do every single day. I want to write, I want to read, I want to exercise, I want to meditate, and I want to draw, you know?
And there you go.
And the more of those things that I manage to spend 5 or 10 minutes on a day, the better the day is. Janice says, my husband says, get rid of it or use it because we're going to be dead in a few years anyway. Ugh, but true.
Nothing like a little reality check from your husband, right? Well, that was a very blunt and correct statement.
Right?
But if you can laugh about it, and it's super practical, right? Like what he's telling you is super practical. Somebody is going to have to clear it out if you don't use it up. So you might as well use it up. You've reached the point in your life. I mean, I think about this in terms of people save money and save for their retirement, and then they retire and they have trouble spending the money that they saved. Like you spent all this time saving the money so that then you could use the money when you retired. That's the whole point of having gathered it. And people have a trouble making that shift. They've been very disciplined about saving in retirement. And then they get to the retirement. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to spend it now. It is a shift in, you've reached that stage in your life where what you've done to prepare for it has now arrived, and now you can use it and do it. And so he's right. We're going to be dead in a few years anyway. You might as well use it up.
Here's a great comment from Ginger, and we're running out of time fast. So this will be our last question, I think.
Okay.
Ginger says, getting older, embrace it. It's simply another phase of life. We adjust to each phase of life. Do what you can to stay healthy and upright, and find some way to have some fun every day. Live in this moment right here. My mother lived to 96. She was happy and playful every day, even during painful times. She taught me many lessons.
Oh, that's a great point of view. Thank you. Ginger shared that.
Yes.
Thank you, Ginger. That's a great way to sum up several of the questions we've answered today. I like it. And it's a perfect thing for, it's this time of year, and here we are, it's the end of the year. We're making resolutions. We're in gratitude around our family at this time of year. And it's a perfect time to think that let's strive to do that better next year.
All right, let's talk about next week, which is our last live show of 2023. How exciting.
Ooh.
We will be back next Tuesday, December 19th at the usual time, noon US Central, live in Zoom and streaming on Facebook. And we're going to talk about, should your home be optimized to function smoothly, to look beautiful, or some combination of the two? Where are you willing to compromise, and what's non-negotiable? In our next episode, we're going to discuss the priorities that inform our decluttering and organizing choices, and suggest strategies for finding your personal perfect balance. This was suggested by a couple of different people. Rowan and Peggy both suggested versions of this that we've put together. Join us next Tuesday for balancing functionality and aesthetics in the organizing process.
Awesome.
Gayle, why don't you give us the tittle?
This week's tittle is called A Hotspot for a Cool Day. This week's assignment is to take advantage of the winter weather to get one of your home's clutter hotspots back under control. Identify an area or surface in your home that seems to attract clutter as if by magic, such as the kitchen counter or the coffee table or a bedside table or the horizontal surface nearest to the entrance of the house. There's always one of those. Remove everything that's accumulated in that space. Discard or relocate any obvious trash, recycling, or items that are ready to go to donation. Put these in the appropriate locations for disposal. If there are items in your hotspot that have a proper home somewhere else, Consider why they ended up here in your hotspot zone instead. Decide whether these items need to be assigned a more appropriate storage location. For any item in your clutter trouble spot that doesn't have a proper storage space, it's time to assign one. Think about where and how frequently you use the item, then put it away in its new home. If other members of your family or household have contributed to the clutter in this hotspot, then you got to enlist them in the cleanup, and make sure to clearly communicate your intention to keep this space clear, except for the specific items that you determine belong there. Focus your attention this week. Every time you find yourself ready to place an item in this hotspot, ask yourself, where does this really belong? Other than I'm going to throw it down right now. Stop and say, where does this really belong?
Dropping it out of my hand.
Right. And then place on your calendar a recurring task to revisit the area, clear it of any new clutter. This is the maintenance routine, and fine tune your arrangement of the space. So hopefully it's a small area. It has some storage challenges, some processes that haven't been put into place. And if you stop and think about what's landing there and where that stuff can go instead, then maybe you can rehab and create a new maintenance routine around this hotspot. We don't want to give you homework because, we don't want you to think there's nothing to do. So here's your homework for the week, and we will look forward to hearing about it next week.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our listeners and viewers, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks, you guys, for coming. Thanks for all the great questions. It's always fun to answer them. You guys are very thoughtful, and you share some great ideas with us. So we really appreciate that. And I hope you enjoy these shows as much as we do. They're very fun to put together because it feels like we're pinging all over the place when we're answering these questions. So it's great for us. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.